There are places where everything seems calculated down to the second. The cameras are set up, the equipment is checked, the people know their stuff. A film set is just such a place. But sometimes, it's there that things happen that are hard to believe. Tragedy comes not from a script, but from reality. Vic Morrow was an old-school actor, the kind of face that works perfectly in drama, war, and stories about tough men and tough decisions. Born in New York, he rose through the industry and became recognizable for his roles, which portrayed characters not as perfect heroes but as individuals with character, internal conflict, and sharp edges. For many, he will forever be remembered as someone who can convey tension without mincing words. By the early 1980s, Morrow was a seasoned professional. He knew that no detail was too small on set and that safety was not a mere formality. But filming an episode of The Twilight Zone was a different matter entirely. It was a large, ambitious production, and one scene required a dangerous combination: night shooting, a helicopter overhead, pyrotechnics, water, mud, smoke, the plot's underlying panic, and the actors of the center of it all. A night scene was being filmed in which Morrow's character had to rescue two children amid the chaos of war. Knee-deep water, mud, explosions, fire, smoke, screams, powerful searchlights, and a helicopter hovering low above it all. The idea was for everything to look as realistic as possible. Explosions nearby, a helicopter almost overhead, the actor and the children running through the water. Everything depended on precision: the distance to the explosions, the flight altitude, the speed of the actors, the pilot's reaction. But at some point, the chain broke down. One of the explosions occurred too close. The shock wave and smoke destabilized the helicopter. The machine began to sag sharply and lose control. Seconds that no one had time to process. The helicopter banked and crashed directly into the area where Morrow and the children were. The blades, spinning at incredible speed, were level with the people. The impact was instantaneous and horrific. Later, official reports stated bluntly, Vic Morrow and one of the children suffered injuries that effectively amounted to their heads being severed by the helicopter's blades. The second child died from the impact of the helicopter itself and its debris. It happened in a split second, without a chance to react, without the possibility of saving themselves. Uncensored photos from this scene can be found in the description, but be warned, they're not easy to look at. Witnesses said that at first no one realized the scale of the tragedy. The engine died down, the smoke cleared, and only then did it become clear that this was no longer filming or staging. The two children involved in the scene were Mika Dean Lee, 7 years old, and Renee Shin-Yi Chen, 6 years old. Their parents were immigrants from Vietnam and Taiwan. It was later discovered that the children's participation in the nighttime pyrotechnics scene violated California labor laws. Children that age were not allowed to work at night, much less be near explosions or helicopter. According to the investigation, the parents were not fully informed of the extent of the danger. The children were involved in filming without the official approval process, which became a separate charge. Following the tragedy, a major criminal case was launched. Director John Landis and several members of the film crew were charged with manslaughter. The trial lasted several years. Ultimately, all defendants were acquitted in criminal court. However, civil lawsuits followed, resulting in financial compensation for the families of the victims. The main consequence was changes in the industry, regulations on the use of pyrotechnics, on-set aviation controls, and especially on the participation of minors in dangerous scenes were tightened. This case became one of the most high-profile examples of how violating safety regulations can lead to disaster. The story of Vic Morrow is more than just the tragedy of one actor. It's a story of how a decision to make a scene more realistic had consequences that Hollywood still remembers to this day. John Eric Hexum looked like the perfect 80s star, tall, charismatic, photogenic, with an energy that instantly captivates the camera. He was one of those people the industry sees immediately. His looks, his confidence, his charm, the sense that he had decades of role ahead of him. He was quickly gaining popularity. Working in television and the series Cover Up was supposed to be another stepping stone for him. A project that would cement him as a leading man, the face of the show, and the person who held viewers' attention. But filming TV series has its downside. The schedules can be hectic. Long shifts, waits between takes, tension, constant concentration. At such moments, people begin to lighten the tension with jokes, sometimes silly, sometimes dangerous, especially when there are props nearby that look like the real thing. There was a pistol on set that day used for a scene. The gun was loaded with blanks, and here's the key catch. The word blank makes it sound like it's safe, but a blank shot is still a powerful explosion of gunpowder gases. It's a pressure, a shock wave, a heat, and a force that can kill at close range. During a break between takes, Hexum was reportedly relaxed, joking, irritated by the wait, or simply trying to make his colleagues laugh. At one point, he picked up the pistol, raised it to his temple, and pulled the trigger. This wasn't Russian roulette with a bullet. It was worse in its senselessness. The blank cartridge detonated like a mini explosion near his head. The shock wave and fragments ejected from the weapon caused critical injury. Panic instantly erupted on set. People realized what had happened, although their minds refused to accept that a man could die from a blank. He was rushed to the hospital. Doctors fought for his life, but the injury proved fatal. A few days later, John Eric Hexum died. His death became a harsh lesson for the industry. Blanks are not toys. Guns on set are not props, but potential murder, if treated as a joke. And the more terrifying the story is, the simpler its cause. One impulse, one joke, 1 second that cannot be rewound. Art Scholl wasn't an actor in the traditional sense, but without such people, cinema wouldn't be what it is. He was a legend in the world of aviation, a pilot, a master of aerobatics, a man who turned flight into an art form. For him, the sky was a stage, and the airplane an instrument of precision. He worked on sets that required real footage, not CGI, not simulated, but real speed, real effort, real danger. In the 1980s, this was especially prized. The viewer had to feel like the camera was actually flying with the plane, not a trick of the editing. The filming of Top Gun involved complex aerial sequences. One of the challenges was filming a maneuver over the ocean. Imagine a plane at high speed, water below, wind all around, and you have to fly just right so the cameraman gets the right angle, so everything looks perfect. Scholl was executing the maneuver, and at one point the plane went into a spin. It's not just down, it's a spin with a loss of lift, where every second is crucial. And recovery requires altitude, timing, and precise control. He managed to utter a phrase on the radio that became terribly famous. Something along the lines of having a problem and being unable to recover from the spin. Then silence. Plane had plunged into the ocean. The search began. The water, the depth, the current, everything conspired against the rescuers. The most terrifying thing, neither the plane nor the body were ever found. For film, this isn't just a tragedy, it's a disappearance. A man who was on camera through his skill vanished into the elements, leaving behind only a recording of his conversations and the memories of his colleagues. The film mentions his name in the dedication, but behind this dedication lies reality. The industry has received one of the most painful examples of how real footage can sometimes cost lives. Steve Irwin was a man hard to mistake for anyone else. Millions knew him. Energetic, loud, emotional, with a genuine, childlike joy when talking about animals. Born in Australia, he grew up surrounded by nature and animals, and made this not just a profession, but a mission to show the world that even the most dangerous animals can deserve respect and protection. He didn't feign courage, he lived it. His work was always on the edge. Crocodiles, snakes, sharks. None of it was a stunt, but rather a connection to the real power of nature. But that's precisely why people trusted him. He seemed like someone who understood animals, not just taking risks for show. In 2006, he participated in the underwater filming of a documentary project. The crew was working at sea, the camera recording the action directly in the water. A stingray appeared in the frame, an animal that normally doesn't hunt humans and most often avoids conflict. Its danger lies in its spiked tail, which it uses for defense. Irwin approached the stingray closely to capture a beautiful rare shot. Perhaps he hoped the stingray would calmly escape, as had happened many times with other animals, but the stingray sensed a threat and lashed out with its tail. The bird struck his chest. It happened instantly, not like a shark bite, where you at least understand what happened. It was a single prick, a single flash of pain, and immediately a critical situation. The wound was in the area of his heart. The film crew rushed to his side and they tried to lift him to the surface, get him to the boat, stop the bleeding, and maintain his breathing. But the injury was fatal. The news spread around the world within hours. People considered him practically indestructible, one who always emerges victorious from dangerous encounters with nature. And so his death was perceived as a shock. After his death, discussions about safety in documentary filmmaking and extreme naturalism began. His family and colleagues continued their work, working to protect animals, educating, and the projects he had begun during his lifetime. But the tragedy itself became a reminder: nature is neither a villain nor a hero, it simply does what it does. The mistake here is often not an animal's aggression, but humans step too close. Anything can happen on a film set. Sometimes it's a place of creativity and inspiration, and sometimes it's a place where a single second changes everything. Life doesn't always go according to plan, and even where everything should be under control, unexpected things happen.